Hi, welcome to Turn Out, Tune In. I'm Romy Karz Rappaport.
And I'm Zippora Karz, and today we are unbelievably blessed to have Stephanie Saland with us, former principal dancer with the New York City Ballet, amazing, amazing human being and teacher, and my dear friend of many, many years. So we're really
thankfully
excited to talk to you. So, Steffi, I know that you started dance late.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we want to start with is, how was that for you then going on to be a principal dancer working with George Balanchine and the New York City Ballet, and how does that inform your teaching today?
What's most interesting for me, if I were to share this information, is the fact that when I started late, I really didn't have a baseline training. I hadn't started with the idea of dancing at all. Just pulled me in kind of like a tidal wave, and I ended up doing something that I'd never had anticipated doing or planned doing. And so that was very much at variance from the circumstances I was surrounded by, because I did get into SAB when I was 14 and a half, and I was put in with 11-year-olds because I actually literally had no verbiage whatsoever. In fact, when I did the audition, Diana Adams was the director of the school, and she had to show me every step. And then I imitated it. And then I got into the school, and then she forewarned us and said, it's likely not going to work, but we'll give her a chance in September. So I started in level A at 14 and a half. And, you know, in that school and in most schools, when people have been studying since they're young, some of them are already doing Swan Lake at 11. You know, it's just, unless they're in the French school where they're not permitted all of that license. But in any case, what really was helpful at this juncture in teaching is that I can walk into a room of people that I've never met before, young dancers, for instance, if I'm teaching at a workshop or for master class for YAGP for competitions, and you can feel that heightened energy of how did I do, that kind of anxiety around performance and quantitative checking in. And I can just really disengage, pull that wire out of the wall, that plug, because I can basically say to them that, look, I wasn't even dancing and you're competing already. I wasn't even dancing till 14 and a half. 3.5 years later, I'm in New York City Ballet, and I'm still tapping people on the shoulder to ask what that step was. I mean, Balanchine gave me Coppelia literally right after Gelsey left because I could act my way through a bag, but dance, question mark. So, so I had to literally ask what a PK circle was. I remember asking Karen, what's a PK circle? Could you help me? Third act. So I was making things up and doing my best approximation of what it looked like. But in a weird, weird way, when you don't know what you're doing, it's kind of like the innocence of no information. You're kind of co-creative with what it is you're perceiving, what you're seeing, and you're interfacing with it in a really different way because you really don't know what's right. You know what's expected, but you don't know what's right. But it's also terrifying. I remember when I first got in the company and I was getting attention, and it was terrifying. I didn't want the attention because I knew I didn't know. And I didn't want to be seen not knowing. And then there you are plonked in the middle of it all. And so all the things that would normally be considered to be wonderful aspects of being professional were absolutely terrifying for me. I mean, I have really goofy stories like Roberta Flack, I'd go home and turn the lights off and play, you know, Killing Me Softly and watch my tights. And, you know, it just was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety around it. And at the same time, I'd say I was a stage animal, and stage to me meant freedom. So it was like, okay, I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm having an awful lot of fun with this music and whatever I can remember about the steps, which was not always. I had to have people assigned to me to teach me my ballets and teach them over to me because I didn't know what I was doing. And even with Jerry Robbins, years later, we went to dinner after I was done. And he said, "So what was that about?" Because he choreographed 4 seasons, for instance, and I was all 3 seasons but the one I danced, because one day he got a great rehearsal, the next day nothing was there. It was all Emperor's New Clothes. So I can really, really empathize and speak to anxiety and these disparities in feeling confident or feeling like you understand what you need to understand, and all those mechanisms that you need at play to actually sustain and flourish in a ballet school or company culture. And the memories are so pungent, depending on your emotional constitution and what you're hearing and how you're hearing it and what voices are affecting your perspectives. That's very long-winded, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Well, Steph, what I think is so amazing is that even though you had the anxiety and the fear, the draw to explore overrode that for you. That you
Absolutely
had more of a need and a love and a passion. The fear didn't contract and make you become less. You actually blossomed. You actually, became more of who you were despite the fear. And I think that's a really valuable thing to be able to offer other people, to try to find them in that in themselves, because I find so many dancers are so afraid. And the perfectionism is something that Romy and I have, been interested in looking at, that we're so afraid of not being perfect. And I know with you, from my experience of being around you and our work, so Steffi and I were next to each other. Romy, I don't know if you were in those sessions with Julia Horvath of Gyro.
And we were like
it was just a big exploration, and we were be given a movement to do by Julia or a breath to do. And I was like, oh, there's Steffi down rolling around on the ground. And I was so afraid of not following directions. Not that we don't need to follow directions, but the ability to follow the direction and then explore within the container of what the directions were. You just had it. You just had the freedom and the uninhibitedness of your inquiry and your desire to explore. That I was, can we do that? I didn't know that. Oh, okay. And
it's actually, how can you not? For me, it was like, there was no question, but I probably, if we would speak to a developmental psychologist or somebody who understands the way that we grow emotionally and otherwise, since I started so late, and I hadn't had any of those rules or strictures embedded in my nervous system or my brain. And I had to come up with like these creative, strange little directions to make up for all of these things that were not available to me. I actually probably did better making strategies that made sense to me that I didn't even know I was supposed to be checking in. In fact, I got in a lot of trouble politically. If I'd been more politically astute, I might have done what we perceive to be as better, but I would never have been able to develop myself.
Right.
So at some juncture, I must have understood something that if I drank Kool-Aid, I was going to be very unnecessarily unhappy, and there was a lot of Kool-Aid around.
Right.